Hello again. Today's video, as promised, is going to be about CGA, and it's going to be about them on two fronts. Number one, I got my Gary Ablett cards back from CGA, so I'm going to be talking about that and some things related to that. And I'm also going to be talking about them on a more general level, as in their business, how I think they're looking going forward, changes they've made, and stuff like that. But first of all, I just want to say sorry for not making any videos. I think it's been over a month now, which is crazy. It's just absolutely flown by. I've been traveling around a bit. At the moment, I'm in Calgary, Canada, so it's just been a bit hard to find a spot, a time and a place to do these kind of videos. In saying that, I still have a few videos in the bank going forward, so look out for those in the future. Today, I'm going to start with how I went with my Gary Ablett submission, and in short, it didn't go very well. So I'm batting 1 out of 2 with CGA at the moment. My Dusties went really well, but my Ablets didn't. But even then, I think there's definitely some shining lights to take out of it and lots of potential moving forward. So I'll tell you how I went. I don't have the exact breakdown because I'm not in the country, so I had Dad just quickly flick through them. He didn't really know what to look for, so I had to tell him. I didn't want to make him count it out one by one, but I only got 9.5s and 9s. From memory, I think I got about half 9.5, so there was 16 all up I put in. So I'd say roughly I got 8 9.5s and 8 9s, which is quite disappointing. I was definitely hoping for at least 110 to keep my PC and hopefully many 10s so I can flip a few, which will pay for the order, keep a few of the other 10s, and then slowly sell off the 9s and 9.5s for a bit of extra profit. Obviously, I can't do that at the moment because I'm out of the country, but with a card like this, I'm not really worried about how it's going to go long term. I really believe in it. I don't believe as much in the 9 and the 9.5s, definitely the 10s, but seeing as it seems so hard to get the 10s, I think there is definitely a market, or is going to be a market, for the 9.5s once people realize how tough this set is to get in a 10 holder. So I want to quickly go into why I thought these cards didn't get 10s. And I said it in my previous video when I was talking about submitting them. And the one biggest thing is centering. When I got the cards, they were pretty much pack fresh. The corners were nice, the edges were nice, the surface was beautiful. But the centering in that set is just kind of weird. And I said it in the last video where all 16 cards were like this. So I was hoping the grader would say, well, this is just how the set is. It's not like these cards are off center. That's just how the set was produced. Unfortunately, I think they went the route of these cards aren't perfectly centered, therefore they can't be a 10, which is perfectly fine, but it is a tad disappointing, especially because I was so positively surprised by the Dusty submission that this one kind of caught me a bit off guard. I was hoping for at least 110. And this goes into the first point with CGA, because they're known as, and I've thought of them in the past, as quite soft graders compared to, your classic American graders. It seems like they give out a lot more 10s than these other companies. But seeing my recent submission results, I think it might be one or two things. Number one, they're starting to grade harder. And I think this wouldn't be a bad thing for CGA because they're known as quite soft graders. And going forward, you don't want that. You want people to really revere your 10s. And I think that's why they created the new Pristine Plus category, because previously they were giving out too many 10s, so their 10s became a bit undervalued or less sought after because there were so many appearing on the market, and people thought, well, it's easy to get a CGA 10, therefore why should I pay 2-3 times the amount to get that card? And I think that is a good idea that they put in the Pristine Plus, but only if they treat it very, very carefully. Now, if they go out just after releasing it and give out a bunch of Pristine Pluses, this is going to devalue that designation as well, just as the Pristine 10 may have been devalued over the past 2 to 5 years. So they really have to be very careful about that. And it seems like they might be getting a bit stricter overall, judging by this last submission, which, although personally that's not good for my submission, but overall I think that's a good thing, because if you start grading a bit tougher, then the population gets lower, the rarity gets higher, and the prices generally go up. And especially for cards that aren't rare in themselves, say this Gary Ablett card, there was about 8,000 produced. If they were giving willy-nilly 10s to every card, then it wouldn't be a very rare thing to get a 10 Gary Ablett, and it would still be quite cheap. But seeing as I put 16 in and I didn't get any 10s, I'd say that less than 5 or 10% of those 8,000 would actually get the 10 Pristine marker, let alone the Pristine Plus. So 5-10% of 8,000 is 400 to 800 cards. And then we're talking about something like the Dustin Martin Draft Rookie. It's in that same conversation where it's under 1,000 cards, so it's actually super rare. So I'm very bullish long-term on high-graded Gary Ablett rookies. I'll be looking out for them, cheap raw copies, or even people, if you got a graded 10 card now, I'd be looking to buy it. I think judging by the response my card's got, show that this is going to be a rare card in the future. And maybe CGA is also conscious of the fact that this may be an important card and a card that they can't grade loosely. Now, I started that train of thought saying one of two things, and I kind of melded them together in the end as usual. So number one was CGA grading a bit harder at the moment, and number two was these Gary Ablett cards are just hard to get in pristine 10 condition because the centering is generally very poor, let alone all the other things. Usually of a card 20 years old, you're going to find bad edges, bad corners, but my cards were pretty damn good. Like they were in really good condition. It was only the centering, unless I missed something on the surface or the corners. Personally, I think it was only the centering that brought it down to a 9.5 and a 9, and you can't do anything about that. That's just how they're printed. So number one, CJ might be grading a bit tougher, and number two, that card is just really hard to get a 10 with any company. So that's all I've got to say about my submission. Now I'm going to be talking about CJ more generally. I've already talked about the new Pristine Plus grade and how they have to be very careful and giving this out on a very select number of cards rather than oversaturating the market with these. The other thing to talk about with CJ is the new labels. And a lot of people have been saying, why did they bother changing the labels if they only moved one number and changed the text to black? But I think the new labels, although I haven't seen them in person, so I can't fully give a review or an analysis, but I think they did exactly the right things. They made the label easier to read. They created more space on the label to create more descriptors for the cards if they need them. And I just think they look a bit cleaner than they did previously. So although it wasn't changed very much, I think it was improved. Everything that they changed was an improvement rather than when they did that instant drop of the hat one with the cracked ice surroundings. I might put up a photo now, but that was a shocker. It really confused people, really angered people, and there was no consultation with the customers of CGA. So coming from that, where I think people lost a lot of confidence, and that's one of the reasons I said don't give your big cards to a company like CGA yet, because they're still young. Even though they've been around for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, they're still learning. They're still learning the business and learning the market and learning how Australia is different to America and how it's also similar, the collecting basis. So although they made a big mistake with that, I really think it's a positive sign that they came back very quickly, they rectified their mistakes, and now I think they've got a really strong product going forward that they won't have to change very often or at all. So hopefully if they keep on this track, then in the future I'll be able to, and we'll all be able to send our high-end cards to CGA as well. So about the labels, I actually like how they handle the situation, and I really like the new labels, how they didn't change it too much. They just fixed the stuff that wasn't working, and that's the way it should be. You can't just overhaul everything. They kept it classic, they kept it in line with their branding, but they just fixed what was wrong, which is great to see. So I think that's all I've got to say today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.